What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch back here with another week of fantasy football. Start 'em and sit 'em, this time for championship week, week 16 of the 2020 fantasy season, a Christmas Eve edition of fantasy Start 'em and sit 'em. In this video, as always, I give you my favorite starts and sits across the board: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, and defense in fantasy this week, and I'm going to help you bring home that championship and the bragging rights. Let's do it. Before I give you my favorite starts and sits in week 16, make sure you do GRONK, spike that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the Bottom Line View for more fantasy content just like this. And let me know your questions in the comment section below. Which lineup questions do you need answered? Let me know in the comment section. Let's waste no more time and get to my starts and sits this week. Let's start with the quarterback position. As always, my quarterback starts. Let's start off with the GOAT himself, Thomas Edward Brady. I think I missed Patrick in there. Tom Brady versus Detroit. He's playing the Detroit Lions, guys. Don't overthink it. It is Tom Brady, and he has been getting better and better within this offense as a passer, as a playmaker, as the season has worn on. In that second half versus Atlanta, Tom Brady was magical. He was looking like one of the top quarterbacks in the game, which I still believe he is a top 5 passer in the sport, and he'll show that off once again in another dome versus the Detroit Lions, a underwhelming defense with many injuries in the secondary and even at linebacker with Jamie Collins. Detroit does not stand a chance. They can't match up with these wide receivers. They can't match the mind of Tom Brady, and he will have time versus a team that doesn't get after the quarterback. Aaron Rodgers versus Tennessee. I feel like I need to put Rodgers in here this week because he was kind of underwhelming last week. Trust me, I know. I had him last week, and it just wasn't what we expected from Aaron Rodgers in a big spot versus Carolina. Not a very good defense, but here he should bounce back with a massive performance on Sunday Night Football under the bright lights. Rodgers loves to show off in those moments, loves to get that strap celebration going on, the discount double check. And versus Tennessee, he'll have plenty of opportunity. The Titans' defense is awful. They are not good versus the run, but they are especially not good versus the pass because they are a bottom 3 pass rush in the NFL at sacking the quarterback. Rodgers will have time, Rodgers will have mismatches, and Rodgers will put on a show. Justin Herbert versus the Broncos. Josh Allen torched the Broncos secondary last week on a Saturday, and this time Herbert's going to do it on a Sunday. The Broncos have no corners, guys. Their top 4 or 5 corners are all rather on IR, suspended, or just simply not playing. Justin Herbert, as long as he has Keenan Allen out there, even Mike Williams, he should be able to put up a 3-hundo, and he should be able to carry your fantasy team to a victory this week. Jalen Hurts versus the Dallas Cowboys. Jalen Hurts has been special with his legs so far in his first couple starts in the NFL. I expect that to continue versus Dallas. Dallas has played better on defense, but they're still not good. I expect this game to be a shootout. I think Dallas will score on the other side, which means Jalen will have to match the Cowboys' offense. I think he can do it. I think the Eagles will come out, score a lot of points. I really like the way Doug Peterson is calling plays, and I think Jalen Hurts has been giving you an explosive element through his arm, which was maybe a little unexpected. So I like Jalen Hurts this week a lot more than maybe other people do. My quarterback sits. Let's start off with Ben Roethlisberger versus the Colts, guys. Ben just looks like an old quarterback. His arm strength is not what it was. His mobility is not what it was. He is getting frustrated quite easily with the offense around him. The inability to run the ball is putting more pressure on his right arm to make plays. And his downfield ability has not been there this year. I don't know if that's because the receivers, he doesn't have AB anymore or anything like that, but he just hasn't been able to get it there and make plays down the field. And I think the Colts know that. The Colts are a very good defense. They put pressure on quarterbacks, and I don't think he's going to have a big game. So with a guy like Roethlisberger who doesn't give you a lot rushing, he doesn't give you that floor, the upside in this matchup is very minimal. And the same could be said with Phillip Rivers versus Pittsburgh, which is on the other side. The 2 quarterbacks that were drafted in 2004, I don't see the upside in this game, right? Rivers is playing Pittsburgh, who's just as good of a defense as Indianapolis. And Pittsburgh gets pressure on quarterbacks. Now, Rivers may be able to hang in there because his offensive line is solid and they give him protection and time. And his connection with T.Y. Hilton has been good. And Rivers has been better than Ben. But just like Ben, he doesn't offer you much as a runner. Pittsburgh's a very good defense. Even if he has a good game, you're not really going to be missing out on a huge performance. And you're better off going with a quarterback like a Jalen Hurts, who has a much higher upside, in my opinion. Russell Wilson versus the Rams. Wilson is a guy that you have started all year long. But I'm telling you, in the championship game, it's hard to trust him playing the Rams. The Rams have been the best defense versus quarterbacks this year, allowing a league-low passer rating. Russell Wilson struggled in the first outing, having his worst game of that season this year. And Wilson has been held to just one touchdown in 3 of his past 4 games. Russell Wilson has not been playing to his elite level that he was MVP level early this year. I would fade him if I had another good option on my bench. If you have to start him, it's not the worst thing in the world. Don't get me wrong, but I would be willing to fade him for another plus matchup out there. Derek Carr versus Miami. Derek Carr's coming off of an injury that could come up. A groin is like a hamstring where at any moment during a game it could pop and you're out of luck. So first, that's the injury. Secondly, Derek Carr doesn't have a huge ceiling in any given week. And third, he plays the Dolphins, one of the best pass defenses in the NFL. I expect the Raiders to run the ball more in this game. Keep it with Josh Jacobs, because that's where you can actually beat Miami's defense. Brian Flores' defense does not give up much through the air. I don't expect Derek Carr to be a play for you this week. My running back starts. Miles Sanders versus the Dallas Cowboys. Just like Hurts, we're stacking them with Sanders. The Cowboys defense has allowed the 2nd most rushing yards and the 8th most fantasy points to runners this season. Sanders has been more effective with Hurts under center. I expect that to continue. David Montgomery is taking on the Jacksonville Jags. And Montgomery has been an absolute machine these past few weeks. One of the best running backs in these fantasy playoffs so far. I expect that to continue. Jacksonville is one of the worst teams defending the run. Chicago's heavy favorites over a touchdown. They should be running the ball early. They should be running the ball late. And they have made him the center piece of this offense. You love to see it. So if you have Montgomery, he is a bona fide number 2 and possibly even a number 1 option this week. David Johnson versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Duke Johnson is hurt, which opens up the door for David Johnson to have a lot of work in this game. The Bengals have allowed a running back to score or gain at least 100 yards in 5 games in a row. So he has a very high floor in this game, given the touches and given the matchup. And then he also has a high upside because they're 8-point favorites. They play the damn Bengals. I love David Johnson. If you have him as a flex, that would be ideal. And lastly, if you are kind of in a desperation mode at running back and you see Zach Moss out there, you see Devin Singletary out there, and you have the chance to pick them up, or maybe they're on your bench, I don't hate playing them versus New England on Monday night. New England has been atrocious. Take it from a Patriots fan versus the run. 400 yards in total of the past 2 matchups. I mean, they let Miami run for 250 last week. That just tells you how bad they are at defending the run. Buffalo did a good job of that the first time they played. Zach Moss actually had a really good game the first time. I expect him to have another good game here. Moss, I would lean over Singletary because he's the red zone back, but Singletary is not a bad play either. I expect the Bills to win. They are touchdown favorites. They are trying to build momentum going to the playoffs, and the one weakness they have is really their rushing attack. I expect them to try to get that going in a plus matchup here. My running back sits this week. Let's start off with DeAndre Swift versus the Bucs. The Bucs are arguably, if not the best, run defense in the NFL. Swift has struggled to run the ball this year. He's a solid receiver. If you need Swift in your lineup, expect him to put up flex numbers, not 1 or 2 running back numbers here, because he does have a tough matchup. I expect the Lions to fall behind early, so his production will come through the receiving game, not the running game. I don't even know if he'll score a touchdown here, so it's hard to sit him. I get it, but I do expect Swift to put up okay numbers. Just don't expect anything special. So that's why I say sit him if you have other options that have plus matchups. Like it's David Johnson, DeAndre Swift. I'm heading in David Johnson's direction. Myles Gaskin. This might be surprising given he's playing the Raiders here. Gaskin's expected back in the lineup, but I do expect the other 2 backs that have been in the fold there in Miami to take some touches away. Gaskin's also a guy coming off an injury. I always worry about that. And he plays the Raiders. And get this, okay? The Raiders have switched defensive coordinators, which has put a new prominent role on what they want to do defensively, right? They, under Marinelli now, want to stop the run first. The broadcast on Thursday night last week talked about how they wanted to stop Austin Eckler. They actually did a good job of doing that. So I expect the Raiders, who are playing another young quarterback this week in Tua and an even worse receiving core, to try to attempt to shut down the run game and put all their resources forward to stopping Myles Gaskin and this running game and forcing it on Tua. So I actually like Tua here. I like the passing game of Miami over the running game and the running backs in this matchup. Pittsburgh's running backs versus Indianapolis. Snell, Connor, doesn't matter. I don't like it. They can't push for a yard in short yardage. They have been super inefficient. Like every second run is negative. The Colts are very good versus the run, one of the best fronts in the league. I would just avoid that situation entirely. Wayne Gallman versus Baltimore. Baltimore is a solid defense, not the greatest versus the run, but they've looked better recently. I just don't like the upside with Gallman. He's sharing touches with Lewis, with Morris, and I don't even see them scoring a lot of points here. So I'm sitting Gallman. My wide receiver starts this week. Amari Cooper. I haven't said his name in a while, but I really like Amari Cooper in this matchup. I don't expect Darius Slay to be playing. The Eagles are beat up in the secondary. The Cowboys looks like they've gotten a rhythm through the passing game, and Amari Cooper has always torched the Philadelphia Eagles. I expect him to have a big game here in this matchup. Marvin Jones versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No Carlton Davis, which means, okay, maybe we see Jamel Dean, who's had his good moments, had his bad moments. But Marvin Jones has been absolutely spammed by Matthew Stafford with targets, 10 targets consistently. This is a game where the Lions will be down and they will be trying to fight back through the air. So Marvin Jones is a very safe play with even some good upside if Jamel Dean plays bad in this game. Corey Davis versus Green Bay. Corey Davis should not see Alexander. That should be A.J. Brown, meaning Corey Davis is going to have the easier of the two corners and probably King in this matchup, which means Davis is going to be the priority for the passing offense of Tennessee. And I do believe they're going to have to pass, okay, because they're playing Aaron Rodgers on the other side, which means they're going to have to put up points in a hurry. So Corey Davis is a very nice start, in my opinion, this week. And Cooper Kupp versus Seattle. The Seahawks are very bad versus slot receivers. They have been all year long. The one that really stands out to me is Julian Edelman. In week 2, he had like 200 yards, and then he went on IR after that. He was beat up, and he was still putting up numbers. Cooper Kupp is a similar type of receiver, not just because he's white, but he's shifty. Cooper Kupp is a stud, and I expect McVay and Goff to get him involved very early in this game consistently. My wide receiver sits. Let's start off with T.Y. Hilton versus Pittsburgh. Now, T.Y. has been really good recently, so I see why you would start him. So if you start him as a wide receiver 3 or a flex, I don't hate it, but just letting you know that this is the toughest matchup he's had in a very long time. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers secondary will be probably keying on him. I would expect them to have one of their top 2 corners on him, most likely Steven Nelson, who in my opinion is the better of the two this year over Joe Hayden. But I expect the big play for Hilton to not be there. So it's going to be a lot of underneath stuff. Given how much Pittsburgh pressures quarterbacks and how much they blitz, it's a lot of quick release stuff. And I don't expect that to be T.Y.'s game. So I don't like him in this matchup. Marquise Brown versus the Giants. Marquise Brown is a big play receiver, and he's playing James Bradbury. Bradbury's been one of the top 5, top 10 corners in the league this year. I expect him to shut down Marquise Brown, who whenever plays a top corner in the league, he just shies away and doesn't really show up. Chase Claypool versus the Colts. Claypool's the big play target, the big play guy. He doesn't get a lot of targets. He hasn't recently. This offense has been a mess, and he's the one guy that maybe he goes off, but maybe he gets shut down, and it's just super inconsistent. In a championship game versus a good team versus a team that loves to take away the big play in Indianapolis, this is just not the ideal matchup to be starting Chase Claypool, in my opinion. DJ Chark versus Chicago. Chark has been invisible lately. He played Marlon Humphrey last week. I said sit him. I sit him again. He's playing a good defense. He's playing a good corner in Fuller, and I don't expect him to be very involved in this game plan. My tight end starts this week, TJ Hawkinson versus Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has actually surprisingly not been good versus the pass recently, and specifically versus tight ends, which might be surprising. Their defense has been generous to tight ends, giving up 8 touchdown catches and the 7th most fantasy points overall this season. Hockenson had a really bad game last week, which is why I have him here in this section. Don't get scared. Still start him. Noah Fant versus the Chargers. Fant had 7 catches the first time they played. The position has scored 10 total touchdowns versus LA. Fant has quietly been really good down the stretch. I would start him. Dalton Schultz versus Pittsburgh. He had a touchdown last week. He's been pretty good on and off for Dallas. He's been involved. The Eagles have terrible linebackers, not very good safeties, and I expect their pass game overall for Dallas to be effective. I think Schultz might score once again this week. My tight end sits. Let's start off with Rob Gronkowski versus Detroit. Gronk has been good this year, but inconsistent, and that's because there's been so many weapons. And I think Gronk is going to be more involved as a passer. When Tampa has been most effective, they've been effective blocking up, protecting Brady, and taking deep shots. And I think Gronk's going to be more utilized as a blocker here. I think that Gronk is not going to be as involved as a receiver in this game. I could be totally wrong, and you should still start him if you have no other options. But I would start somebody else if you have another decent option in your lineup. Jonnu Smith versus Green Bay. I just can't trust this guy. I'm going nowhere near him. He was good at the beginning of the year. He's since basically become invisible. Tyler HIGBEE versus Seattle. Jamal Adams, Bobby Wagner. It's not the matchup. Higbee's had some good weeks. He even had a decent week last week. But this is not the week. I don't see it. I expect Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods to be way more involved than the tight ends this week for the Rams. And my defensive starts this week. Let's start off with Chicago versus Jacksonville. The Jags, I mean, they suck. Their offense is terrible. There's no way around it. This is a big bounce back spot for Chicago's defense. They're fighting for a playoff spot. They're 7.5-point favorites. They're expected to win big, and that would be on the shoulders of their defense. I expect them to do so, turn the football over, and have a good fantasy day for you. Baltimore versus the Giants. Colt McCoy, Daniel Jones, both are prone to turning the ball over. Give me Baltimore's defense. I love them a lot this week. And I think they're going to cause havoc, they're going to create pressure, and they're going to make life difficult on the Giants' offense. Lastly, Buffalo versus New England. Now, New England's offense doesn't turn the ball over a lot, but when they do, it comes in bunches, and they usually turn it over, once every once in a while. And it seems like they do it once they get behind their opponent. Once they're, when they're in the game, they don't really turn the ball over. But when they're down, they turn it over in bunches. And that's what I expect to happen on Monday Night Football. So Buffalo's defense has been playing better. I expect them to have another good game on Monday night and continue their momentum moving forward. There are my starts and sits for championship weekend in fantasy football. Let me know any questions you have in the comment section below. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. Peace.